Launched into the record books, SpaceX sends 143 satellites into orbit on a single rocket flight. The US company SpaceX has set a new world record for the number of satellites launched on a single rocket. 143 payloads were on board the Falcon rocket, which launched from Florida. It beats the previous record of 104 satellites set by an Indian mission 4 years ago. Will Marshall is CEO and co-founder of Planet, which is the largest imaging data satellite company in the world. They put up 48 Super Dove images satellites today on SpaceX, and he joins me now. Thank you so much for your time. Tell us a little bit more about those satellites, whether they're working and what you plan for them.
Thanks, Freya, and pleasure to be here. Yeah, we've already connected with all of the 48 satellites, and they're all healthy. They phoned home, so to speak, and so they're doing well. It's early days, early in their mission, but so far so good. And what they'll be doing is imaging the Earth. So they join another 150 of their colleagues in orbit. So we now have 200 of these satellites, which basically image the entire landmass of the Earth once per day. And so basically they scan the whole Earth looking for changes. And that's used by a variety of people in commercial areas, like in agriculture, to understand crop yields, forestry to understand deforestation, mapping to improve the maps that you see online, humanitarian use cases like helping disaster response after floods and fires and earthquakes and so on, and helping us to understand the changing planet. So we work a lot with researchers like at NASA and the European Space Agency on climate change and understanding the glaciers and all the different effects of climate change.
It sounds like it's become easier and cheaper to send satellites into space. Are you concerned about overcrowding and the work of smaller companies or students, overcrowding that precious space?
It's a great question. I mean, certainly on point. We are putting a lot more satellites into orbit now, over time, humanity that is, and we are seeing crowded areas in certain orbits. Now, most of the crowded piece that actually is in danger of a sort of what they call the Kessler syndrome, where the number of satellites gets more and more and collides with one another, is quite high. And so one of the tricks that all of these satellites that were launched today use is just stay really low, where there's still a lot of atmospheric drag, and eventually the satellites just come down. So one can operate safely by keeping them low.
And Will, what do you think is the best way to tackle this issue, I suppose, of overcrowding? Do you think there needs to be more regulation?
Yeah, I actually think that there does need to be more regulation in space. Space is a bit of the Wild West when it comes to law. It's very early, but it's also right now is working quite well in most areas. But I do think we could do with a little bit more to prevent the worst aspects of behavior that can cause collision or cascade, this Kessler syndrome that I mentioned. But right now, as I said, all these satellites are being put really low, so they don't contribute to the problem. The main problem was historical, when during the Cold War and occasionally since, countries have put up lots of satellites much higher, where they take many, like 50 or 150 years to decay. And in those orbits, they're more problematic. So we've learned now as an industry to keep them very low, and by keeping them low, they get out of the way and don't cause a long-term problem.
Will Marshall, CEO of Planet, the company that sent 48 satellites into space today.